Admittedly, I had no idea what this was, but I'm doing series reviews now. So, well, what's up? Welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, and I'm your favorite blind film critic. And this is a review of the Decameron. This is a limited series currently available on Netflix. It has 8 episodes. They have audio description. It's done by Diffuse, narrated by Vito De Felipe, and written by Bryn Potter. We're gonna talk about that. I do have a purple hat on backwards. I'm wearing black sunglasses and I have a Loki shirt on. So, the Decameron, what is it? Because the title really tells you nothing about the film, about the series. It's a bubonic plague comedy. Fun. Fun. Uh, so it takes place during the time of the bubonic plague, and it has an ensemble cast, but you do kind of start off with two leads, starting like Lucia, something like that, and um, she's this servant to this other girl, and you're watching this old man die at the beginning from the plague, and everybody's worried about catching the plague, and it's kind of dark at the beginning of this with I mean, like dead people, and they're like stealing the boots. It's like, if you don't want the plague, why are you stealing the boots? How do you know that it's not transmitted? How do you disinfect the boot? But so anyway, they uh, the the upper crust one. This is a very like upstairs downstairs thing where you have people who are uh, like from, I don't want to say noble class, but wealthy versus their servants who follow them around. So the the girl decides, we're leaving, and dad died, and she's like, what? And the servant is like, well, let me go pay my last. No, no, no. I know, because we'll catch the plague. Basically, she's just leaving her dad to die. She's a wonderful person. Um, and she wants to go, and everybody else is going to this. They've all been like invited to this house out in the an estate, I guess, really is the word for it, out sort of in the middle of nowhere, so that way, because they believe that if they stay out there and none of them have the plague at the time, that they can stave off the plague by staying away from it. Um, so these two go there, some other people go there, uh, and along the way, there's a little bit of a fight, and Lucia, I don't know, like, there are so many names that are so really close to each other that I may be getting this wrong, but she has a fight with her boss. I don't know, the upper. I don't. What are these words for things? This is all very weird. Like servant master. I don't. With her master, that sounds very wrong. I don't like these words. Um, and it ends up with her pushing her master into the water, and she rides on, and then she pretends that she's the upper crust one, and that her servant, her handmaiden, went missing. So she gets to live, and then people suddenly respect her, and she's enjoying. She's like never had that before. Meanwhile, we're introduced to all these other people. There's this one uh, very sort of like prissy sort of I don't know, like, I don't know what's the right word for it. He's like Niles on crack. Like, he's been sheltered his whole life. He's allergic to everything. He has his doctor with him. Um, there are some other servants that are like actually at this place. Some people come in and out. This also, the cast fluctuates. I should say that is that you start out with like cast at the beginning, and then people will come and go, and like more people arrive, and some leave or they die or whatever. So like the cast does fluctuate. It's not just like the cast that you're introduced to in episode 1 is the cast that is the cast for the remainder of the show. Um, there's another girl there that is trying to marry, and she's really worried about the fact that she's old at 28 and hasn't been married. And she's worried that if she doesn't marry this guy who owns, she was invited, because she has her dowry to give this guy that owns this property. But you find out basically that his servants are hiding the fact that this guy died. Leonardo, I think was his name, um, died from the plague. And they kind of covered up the death, and they're just kind of like pretending. And well, she has her dowry, and she's like ready to try to, um, she wants to, and it's a lot of game playing through. There are raiders that come through. It plays almost kind of like a zombie apocalypse movie where these like roving groups kind of move through, but everything's done with a dark comedic tone to it. Um, and it's silly. It goes for sort of a really broad style of humor, but I can't peg it for anything. I can't say it's specifically like this. It felt like this to me. Whereas like with like My Lady Jane, I was like, well, this is kind of like The Great, but maybe like a slightly less violent version of The Great. This doesn't really feel like anything to me, and it didn't fully work. Like not all of the jokes worked for me. Some of them did, some of them didn't. It just kind of depends. It feels like it throws a lot at you to see whether or not you feel like any of it will stick. Um, and like I said, it does have an expanding and changing cast. So people come in and out. Um, I'm trying not to give anything away. It's really hard. Uh, the Leonardo thing you find out in the first episode, I don't consider that. When you have an 8 episode thing, I should be able to talk about things that happen in the pilot. So, otherwise, what else do I have to talk about? Um, but yeah, they take care of that in the beginning. Um, yeah, stuff happens, and at the end of the series, it ends, and some people are standing, and maybe their life has been changed forever. I don't see how they would. I know we have this trend where we make second seasons of limited series. They could do that here. It'd be a weird second season because of where these characters are left, um, and the fact that the cast is reduced in size through various means over the course of 8 episodes. So, yeah. Tony Hale is in this. He's kind of wasted. He's definitely not the star. So if you're watching this for Tony Hale, not the star. Has a bunch of people in here I didn't recognize. Only a couple that I did, and he was one of them. And I actually saw people like referring to this as the Tony Hale show, and so I just want to go ahead and squash that and say he is not the lead of the show in any possible conception of how you could see this show. He would not be considered the lead by any measure. So he's very much in the ensemble in a supporting role. So that is his involvement. I won't tell you whether he makes it to the end because that's unfair. I really want to dive into the audio description here because that's what I'm here for. So we're going to flip the audio description time. I generally am not really happy. I'm rarely ever happy with Diffuse as a company. I feel like they make really basic audio description at the cheapest, quickest way possible. The stuff where I've definitely felt like they could have done more. Last year they had Killer Book Club. I felt like that could have been done way better than it was. The fact that stood out to me, and I remembered what company and what film. Yeah, I do kind of remember when they're attached to projects, and it's not. I can't remember ever being like, "Wow, Diffuse did that. That was really good." I don't get that from them. So I kind of keep wanting them to be better and do more. I feel like Bryn did the audio description, wrote the audio description for Under Paris, which Diffuse also did, and Vito did. And that wasn't the worst. That was actually probably the best audio description I've heard from Diffuse was Under Paris. to be honest. um, but actually, it is. I can't say that with an absolute definitiveness, but I think Under Paris was probably the best audio description I've heard coming out of Diffuse, and I think she wrote it. Here, whereas with Under Paris, she went into sort of like the violence and the gore with the shark attacks. The problem here is this is a period piece, and it takes place uh, during the bubonic plague, so it's very specific as to when the time period is. You get none of that here. There's no comment on uh, any wardrobe choices like that make it feel of the period, the style of the homes, architecture. They do mention some things, but they don't really go into detail. So they'll be at the house and they'll say like, "There's a fountain." Okay, so there's a fountain. I'm like, I know there's a fountain now. I mean, like you get very like surface level descriptions of things. One of the main characters is introduced as um, she's wearing a fancy dress, and I'm like, that's really basic. I mean, like, what does that even mean? Like, you can't even like tell us this kind of dress, the style of dress. Did we not want to research the time period? There's no color. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's her first introduction. That sets her up as a character, and she's got a fancy dress on. Okay, cool, thank you. Um, but it does. It's like Bryn doesn't have a problem going after things that are gory. So like the plague description stuff, when people have signs of the plague with the boils or whatever on them, we get that. That's mentioned. It's just that other than that, this is really like I feel like the character descriptions were really basic. I have no idea if any of this is diverse. If there's any diversity in this cast at all. I'm really only familiar with two actors here, and both of them are white. So Sosie Mamet is in this. Um, so I have no idea. I have no idea if this is a diverse cast, if it's intentionally so, if we're doing like an upstairs downstairs thing where we have a lot of the uh, maid slash handmaiden slash butler type people are all, you know, maybe they're all the diverse in the cast, and then the other people are. Is this like a Hamilton's Bridgerton thing where we're going out of our way to change it up? Are we holding true to the time period so certain people wouldn't be here during this time period in certain positions? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing here? I had no idea. Um, and there's not really that much violence to necessarily go into. Um, Sexual content most often runs into sort of an overlap into comedic stuff because the sex is oftentimes also somehow funny. There's one scene where and I believe it was still in the first episode, so I think it's fair game. There's a woman who I will say is pleasuring herself that doesn't know that two of the men are watching her. Well, at least one of the men was pleasuring himself. So, and she's not doing it in like an obvious way. She's doing it in one of those ways where it's like she's found something like when you sit on a vibrating chair type of thing. And yeah, so anyway, so that was described. This, there's later on where this maybe in a later episode, I don't know. There's a character that's found, and the doctor character is like, "Oh wow, you're sick, and I need to give you my body warmth," and somehow convinces the girl that they need to hug, and he's like feeling her and grabbing her, and I thought that was well described. But like in general, I know nothing about these characters. I know very little about what they look like. Most of them we don't even get. Like sometimes we get like hair color or like glasses. I feel like some of these characters I didn't get anything. I just know names. And to be fair, there are a lot of names in this to try to track and to follow around. So this series would be nuts without audio description. especially considering the cast, like people come in and out, and like more people find the place and then leave, and or don't survive the whole show. So like it'd be a very confusing 8 episodes with no audio description. So, but I can't say that this is any sort of like high quality level of audio description. I've come to terms with the fact that Vito, I don't mind his voice as a narrator. He seems to get attached to companies that are trying to provide the lowest possible audio description. He is attached to so many of the worst described programs that I've heard. And I don't know that he himself is a bad narrator. I wish he would work with a better company, because I'd love to see what he could do with a company that cares and gives him a script that's good. The best part about this script is actually the depth of detail in the title card sequence, with the rats scurrying around and the fact that we get all of the names. Because this is something that Apple is incapable of doing with their shows. This is basically like, I want to take this title sequence. This is one thing that Diffuse has done good in their entire existence. I would take the title sequence for the Decameron and I would send it to Apple. And because I'm tired of their fucking intros. They have so many intros to shows that have no cast in them, and we're just getting descriptions of like images, but like you know that there are names being given, right? You know that like it's saying like with the new one, Lady in the Lake, you know that it's saying like Natalie Portman. It's dropping names there, and Moses Ingram, and people like that. So Noah Jupe, whatever. It's got those names coming through the cast, but it doesn't say any of that. It just kind of describes these images, and I'm like, I mean, cool, but at the same time, who the fuck is in this? Like, you're requiring your audience to look up on IMDb. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I want to know who's in this, I have to IMDb the show. Whereas with the Decameron, I would have to IMDb it if I wanted to know who was playing who. But at least I would get the names. At least I know who's in the show. I know who the main cast is. So, and I get the thing about the rats moving around. So they managed to do both. They pulled it off. They did what Apple's trying to do, which is to describe the images. But they also inserted the names. It is possible, Apple. You can do it. So best part about the Decameron is the title card sequence in terms of audio description. The show is okay. I think some people will like it. I think some people won't like it. I don't think this is going to be something where we're going to be talking about Emmy consideration next year. I'd be surprised. But then again, I also didn't really love the first season of The Bear. And that ended up being like the giant success. I do love the second and third seasons, though. I just didn't think the first season of The Bear was... I felt we went way too hard on that series, way too early. Like, we could have been like, wow, there's something here. And then in the second season, but like, oh my God. Because I thought the second season was incredible. Especially that Fishes episode is excellent. But yeah, this is just, I just didn't, the performances are fine. The one character is just so absurd. They've got this one character that is the one that I said was really prissy. He's so hilarious. I don't know. He's just, and I don't, there's LGBT representation here, but it's not him. He's just unintentionally, he's like I said, that he's like Niles, but like times 10, like Niles Crane, but like times 10. In the wrong direction too. In the, obnoxious, more and more obnoxious. I found him funny, but not all the time. Sometimes they do something with his character, I'm like, that's a bit much. So it's like they don't quite know where the balance of humor is in the show. Audio description wise, I want more for Vito. I do. I want him to have... I think he'd be good on a drama or a documentary written by and produced by a company that's really interested in engaging audio description. That's what I want to hear him on. because I'm tired of hearing him on things that he doesn't belong on. He should not be anywhere near Abbott Elementary. And if he comes back next season for Abbott Elementary, I'm going to be pissed. He can be on other things, but he can't be on Abbott. He's absolutely the wrong narrator for Abbott Elementary. Even when they tried to make that audio description better, he's not meant for comedy. He hasn't. There's nothing about him that tries to highlight. And the Decameron kind of highlights his inadequacy in that regard. He's kind of a flat narrator, but it's not totally flat. I've heard more flat than this. I've heard people that feel like it's AI audio description. And at least with him, when he's recorded properly, I feel like I can hear human. So there's hope. And since since he does so much narration, I keep hearing him on things, I want him to just work with better companies. That's my hope, my wish for you. I'm gonna give the Decameron a B. I think you'll be fine if you really are interested in it. It's a weird premise. It's a weird setup. It plays out like, okay. You know what I'm saying? Like it's fine, it's good. Some of it's really funny, some of it really works, some of it doesn't work. It's mostly okay. It's mostly good. I'd recommend it over not recommending it. But I'm also just not going to be like, oh my God, please go watch this thing right away. It's hilarious. I was dying the whole time. It's a tough sell. A bubonic plague comedy is a really weird, tough sell, and you have to come at it from the right angle. And I don't know that they fully did. There's an angle here, but I don't know if it's necessarily the best one. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.